All right, back with you on the Newsfeed PM. Thanks for staying on. Founder of the Center for Ancestral Justice, Tswana Gogontlapo, says the start of the Khampepe Commission will be a bittersweet moment for many South Africans. The Commission of Inquiry is set to begin public hearings tomorrow as part of a settlement following court action alleging interference in investigating and prosecution apartheid-era crimes.
It's a moment of hope for the Credog 4 because this commission was set up around their pursuit of justice. But also it's a moment of gloom for people who don't fall within the bracket of the Khampepe Commission, which is set to start the investigation from 2007, if I'm not wrong. What happens to the people of Sharpeville? Because the interference started back then in apartheid when they instituted things like the Indemnity Act, indemnifying everybody who was there along the side of the government. So, and that comes for Soweto, Bipatong, Thokoza, and everything else in between. They need justice, and I'm going to speak specifically to Sharpeville because for the longest time we've always been told that it was 69 people who died and 180 people. And the people who were there, our grandmothers, always told us that the number is not correct. And about 2-3 years ago, we found proof from the National Archives that says we're at least sitting at 91 people that died on that day. And if we have 69 graves, 69 names at the memorial site, where's the missing 26? You know, so there are people that's still sitting with who don't know what happened to their people. But there's autopsy report, there's their names, there's addresses, there's age on you know how old they were at the time. So to them it's like, okay, if we're going, the Khampepe is going to concentrate on this period. What happens to us who still are living with unanswered questions?
All right, now we're joined by Marjorie Jacobs, National Director at the Khulumani Support Group. Marjorie, good afternoon and thank you very much for coming on. You, of course, have been committed to this process since your establishment in the early 90s. It's now 2026. We are having the Khampepe Commission because of court action, of course, that comes from some of the victims and families of those who suffered apartheid-era crimes. Are you confident in this process? I mean, again, it's a government-led process, and whether or not there is commitment in seeing this through.
Tabo, there are many concerns about this coming process beginning tomorrow because it is going to look at such narrow terms of reference that, as the woman from Sharpeville said, the majority of people will never get a chance to appear before the Commission of Inquiry. And that's a huge tragedy because this is probably the last opportunity for people to actually become part of, be recognized for making so many sacrifices in the struggle for democracy. And I really fear that this is going to deepen the disillusionment with what we've had in this country. And there are so many ways we could fix it, but there is absolutely no willingness to engage with victims and survivors to find a better solution. I accepted invitations to the two consultations with the staff of the Commission of Inquiry, and there was no space at all for anybody to raise an issue. It was like typical legal process where there is no possibility of having any impact on the way they're going to work. So we really hope that this attitude can change because this can be a truly healing event for thousands of people. But if it's going to be run like it is presently set up with almost no scope for dealing with the extent of what we have got left after the TRC, it will be a massive disappointment and a massive loss of an opportunity for everybody, including for all the citizens of this country.
I say the heart of what is this difference of opinion about which cases should be referred or how far it should go can just be brought down to the fact that there's just no will and I suppose an attitude of apathy.
I think it's not simply apathy, unfortunately, Thabo. We believe that just after the TRC passed its final report, in which all the recommendations for reparation, for instance, were included, we held a meeting that involved all the relevant government officials and the victims and survivors. And there was like no discussion. This is just the way it's going to be. And I really mourn the fact that we've lost the capacity to dialogue and find a better solution. This has been going on now for almost 25 years and nothing has shifted. And victims and survivors have been the victims of this kind of state decision-making, which completely excludes the people who carried the cost of the struggle. That's the real tragedy in this situation. I have been trying to expand the scope of this Commission of Inquiry. I haven't had formal replies from the TRC Secretariat, the Inquiry Secretariat, because I think they are so stuck on the particular terms of reference that were put in place, which were never done in consultation with victims and survivors. So the people who are basically the only ones who are going to get any joy from this are basically about 35 families whose cases are now going to be before this Commission of Inquiry. And that is terribly, terribly regrettable. And we have always been open to helping to find a better solution so that we don't leave all this woundedness and pain and regret forever in our country. We don't need to do that. We have shown that we are what we are capable of. So I really hope that there will be proper engagement. Khulumani has been put like at the bottom of the list. They were forgetting even to send us the records of the first two meetings, consultations. And that comes from a phenomenon that happened where there were deliberate efforts to sideline Khulumani. I will be submitting an affidavit exactly because that is what needs to be dealt with. Why are the 100,000 victims that are associated with Khulumani getting no hearing whatsoever? That's where we are stuck. And it's coming because there's a manipulation of the people who are behind this whole endeavor. So it's not an inclusive and not a fair and not an open procedure. It's very, very sad to make it so limited.
Now, of course, the initial numbers, I could be wrong here, would have said some 21,000 people would have been eligible for reparations. When you would have started your process, I think you would have put that number at about 100,000. Not quite sure how far we have gone down that particular process. And when you're saying now only 35 families will benefit from this, how many are being left out?
Tens of thousands are left out, Thabo. You know, what Khulumani did with this terrible delay in dealing with the issue of reparation for many, many years, we went out and we documented victims of apartheid atrocities. We have a database called the Khulumani Apartheid Reparation and Reconciliation Database. We were asked by the former commissioner for the TRC victims to hand it over with no conditions applied to her. And we said, well, we can't do that. This is purely our work and our effort across the whole country. And we are willing to partner you, but we will not just hand over all of this work with no knowledge of how you're going to use it, because we know what needs to happen. I've been inundated with phone calls since this Commission of Inquiry was announced, and we are looking at all the major gaps that there are and whether there's any way we can get a bit more space in this Commission of Inquiry. But I think the problem is lawyers don't understand the importance of inclusion of victims and survivors. They are purely working by the letter of the law, which the law that they have constructed, not the law that they have consulted victims and survivors about. So there's a huge gap there. And I mean, we were not stopping from trying to have some impact on this Commission of Inquiry. It's just very tragic if it's going to turn out to be a purely legalistic approach that does not actually give people a space to be recognized, because something like 100,000 victims of these apartheid atrocities have never been recognized.
Right.
And the desire to be recognized is what drove them to ask Khulumani, please, to create a database where they could table their stories, what had happened to them. Yeah. That's the database that we hold, and we treasure it because a lot of people are passing on without ever getting the recognition, which is the start of healing for people. My story is there, and that's what they want to know, because I contributed to this struggle against apartheid. So I hope that there's going to be better understanding. We have hope that Judge Khampepe, who's a very humane judge, I hope that she will be influenced to understand that it can't go forward the way it is structured now, which is purely mechanical and legalistic. We want a human engagement that actually gives some peace of mind to many, many more people.
All right, Marjorie, I appreciate your time this afternoon. Let's leave it there. Marjorie Jobson, National Director for Khulumani Support